All right. Hi. Hello. I'm Daria Isham, and welcome to Daria's Politics. Sorry, that still feels weird. I don't know. Maybe at some point it won't, but until then, here we go. So this is my first real, meaty video, if you will. If you missed one of my thrilling intro videos, be sure to check those out. Can't, can't really encapsulate what gemstones those are. But I'll try. I'll try to kind of catch you up. What I'm doing here is twofold. One, I want to express and get the point across that in order for there to be any real, meaningful political change in this country, we have to start through the state legislators. And number two, that in order to do that, we have to raise awareness by providing information about these legislators. Who are these people? There are like 7,000 state legislators, over 7,000, who make decisions that impact our daily lives all the time. And we have no idea who they are. They exist in this like weird, hazy, secret chasm, I like to refer to it. But it's more than that, because even if we wanted to find out information, it's surprisingly difficult. Now, that's not to say that there aren't, any political stars, as I said. We got Mama Donnie. But for the most part, we have no idea who these people are. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they stand for. And when we go to vote for them, more importantly, we don't know how to get that information. Not many of these websites and millions, or not millions, but hundreds of organizations that promote democracy and get out the vote and all these other things focus on state legislators. Now, that's not to say none of them do. There are absolutely a few really amazing groups that do. The States Project is probably the biggest one. And there it is, right there in the name. And they raised, I can't remember what it was, $50, $75 million alone during the 2024 election cycle. These are huge numbers, right? Democrats have spent a lot of money on the states in the recent cycles. Why that is, I think I'll get to a little bit later in the video. Just little teasers to what's to come. But let's try and stay focused on the main part of this video, which is why the states. This morning I woke up, mid-morning-ish, as I'm doing dishes. I put on Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, as I'm wont to do on Tuesday mornings. And, he's funny and adorable as ever, but he had a guest, and while I don't always stick around for his amazing guest performances, today I did. And the guest was this guy who wrote a book. And his book was called The Plan, or, my plan, the big plan. This is the plan. And I'm laughing because his plan is actually also my plan. Although, okay, I haven't read the book, of course, having just heard about this guy this morning and his book this morning. So, of course, I haven't read the book, so I can't actually speak about the book. But that never really stops people, does it? I did listen to his whole interview with Jon Stewart. And he is, I want to say Wackler. His name starts with a W. And was the DNC chair for Wisconsin. I feel like those clues provide you more than enough information that you will need to look into this. And essentially, from what I gathered, is he provides a blueprint for what they did in Wisconsin, which is essentially flip the legislator from entrenched Republican due to gerrymandering laws to Democrat. And how they did this was, local, through a slate of local campaigns and elections, which is basically what I'm getting at here. So, go read his book. Again, not an endorsement because I haven't read it. But go ahead, you could go read his book, or you could listen to this, 10 to 15 to 20 minute video that I'm preparing for you. Or you could do both, ideally. Or not ideally, do you. But, sorry for that tangent. The point that I was trying to make here is that this plan of mine isn't actually my plan, right? This isn't some secretive democratic strategy. This is very basic, fundamental, blatantly obvious plan that has just been diluted over the decades. And so what exactly is it, right? What's been diluted? What's going on here? What are we trying to get? So why states? We'll start with that, right? The reason why states is because the states have a huge amount of power. This is what Republicans want, right? Abortion is the classic example. A lot of the laws, or a lot of the issues, I should say, that get batted around on the national stage are actually state level issues, or can be done in the states. Like, they can also be done by Congress, but see my intro video to how I feel about them. But really, they can be done at the state level, right? Abortion, gun laws, gerrymandering, voting rights, redistricting, to name just a few of the highlights, but so many other things. School budgeting, parks, you get the point. Most things that Americans care about, most things that impact our daily life, are done at the state level. And this is by design. It's by design because, well, depending on who you ask, the founders in their infinite wisdom, knew that the states needed power, but really, slavery. Let's be honest. The southern states didn't want to give any of their power to the northern states, and they also were really worried that the northerners were going to make slavery legal, so they wanted to maintain as much power and control as they could, which they did for a very long time. And a lot of the states did actually maintain a lot of this power for a very long time. And slowly, over the course of history, and a lot of different factors, nationalization of party politics, decline of local newspapers, interstate commerce clause, a bunch of different reasons, but really just his life, progress, life, technology, democracy, changing demographics, all of these things, all of these trends have slowly whittled states' powers and added more to Congress. And not just more power to Congress, but with power comes money, resources, attention, and votes, right? Or, obviously not, this isn't like a one-way, one leads to the other. This is more of, all messed up into one. The decline of local newspapers, means that we don't know who these state legislators are. Nobody talks about them. Nobody thinks about them. Nobody knows what to do with them. And so Congress has become this sort of elite gerontocracy, which basically means old people. This like elite group of old people, it's like 570 is supposed to represent 330 million people, which is a whole other issue. Again, maybe we'll do a little video about representation, because the fact that one person from the House of Representatives represents 400,000 people is insane, and there's nothing and no reason why there shouldn't be thousands of representatives at this point. We have the technology, we have the capacity, Anyway, sidebar. Another video on that. Write that down. But where was I going with this? Right. So Congress, elite, old, out of touch. State legislators, however, are supposed to be much more in tune with their constituency, right? They actually live in their districts. They actually are neighbors. They work in their districts, which is the thing, right? Most of these state legislators are not full-time politicians. Some of them don't even get paid. Sorry, I said it like that. I think New Mexico is a state where they don't even get paid. They get a per diem when they're in session, which is about 2 months a year, I think, is what it's supposedly called. Some of them get paid a decent amount, right? But it's a range, because guess who makes those rules? They do. The states do. So there's this wide variety, right? Some work 2 months a year. Some, it is a full-time job. Some have a lot of turnover, right? Some are kind of in it for life. The point is that there's this huge black box, and we are not talking about it. And because we're not talking about it, we're not voting on it. And this is the second point, is that these elections are very, very winnable, because they always come down to not that many votes. Now, at the same time that they're very winnable, they are also very rigged, right? And this is what my man from Wisconsin was talking about. And, okay, no, I won't go there yet, but I will. The state lines, the state district line, sorry, they're not even districts, right? The state district lines are just as gerrymandered as the congressional district lines. And what ends up happening is that I think it's over a third, it was something like 40%, according to AI. Take it what you will. But about 40% of these state of the, that's the other thing, is that the terms are short, right? I mean, they don't have term limits, but the terms are short. They're like every 2 years. I guess some state houses are every 4 years, but the state assemblies are every 2 years, which means that every even year, about almost 6,000 of these come up for election. And I think in the last one, that was 38% of these were uncontested. That's not like a safe district. That means that they literally didn't have an opponent. There was a Republican running against no one, or a Democrat running against no one. So that's almost 40% that are uncontested. But then out of that remaining 60%, the vast majority of them are in what's considered safe district. That means that the Republican is always going to win, or the Democrat is always going to win, and we always know who. So what that means is that most of these elections are actually won in the primary. Now, if I've lost you, sorry, but I don't think that I have, because we all know, or sorry, not we all, I will say, anyone who has been paying attention to recent politics in New York knows that the House Democratic primaries that just happened were a nail biter. You know, we had a bunch of old, not bunch, but, you know, a lot, a few incumbent Democrats who were primaried by newer, younger, more progressive, dare I say it, Democratic Socialists. And they won. Democratic Socialists, that is. So we know that this primary election season is gaining momentum and it's gaining buzz for the House of Representatives. The state houses and the state assemblies, you know, have a little ways to go. But that's my point, right? Is that what happens is that these elections can be won in the primaries. And these primaries come down to a handful of votes. Like, these are not highly attended elections. So there's this huge margin where we can just fill in with anybody who is interested and curious and wants to enact any sort of political change or change the slate. And I imagine this is what Wisconsin did. Again, having not read the book. But that's what I guess. I also think that it's probably, my assumption is that it wasn't the primary thing, but it was also running somebody in an uncontested race. Because even in these districts, even in districts that are so heavily gerrymandered, we're in this unique, well, maybe not unique, I shouldn't say. We're in this interesting moment in American politics where party identification is waning. We've always had a two-party system, right? It's in the Democrats and Republican. But right now, it's about a third, right? Of how people identify. But being a third actually identify as independent. Which means that if you've got a Republican-zoned state legislative district, and you've got a Republican running against nobody, an independent can come in and easily win that election with not that many votes. And an independent running on a platform of my four, was it four? Wealth taxes, inequality, right? Regeneration, not extraction, climate change, voting, changes, amendments to the Constitution to ensure equal voting participation, AI regulation, right? You can vote, pick any of those, pick one of them and run that. Pick healthcare, pick any one of those and run that against an incumbent Republican. Now, I don't know for sure, but this is what I'm willing to bet. Or, say out loud into the Ethernet. I think you can win. I think you can flip a lot of state legislators, and I don't think it'll take that long because these elections happen every 2 years. It's not a wild task, it's not like so far out of reach. It's actually quite simple. The big piece that's missing is the information and the awareness campaign, which again, That's why I'm here, and that's kind of why I'm doing this, is the awareness campaign and the information. So if this is such an obvious strategy, where are the parties, right? Why haven't they been doing this? And the answer to that is partly that they have. And partly, because they've got their heads up their asses. But let's go with the first. So what happened? The story goes something like this. And I'm going to say out front that I am not a political strategist. I'm not a political insider. I have never worked in... Scratch that. I worked on Obama's 2008 campaign in Montana. So I have worked on a campaign in politics before. That was it. And worked. I volunteered canvassing. But I did it. Yeah. Maybe we'll get into a video on that. Probably not. So before I go into this, I will say that I am sure that not all of my information is completely correct. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. But here I'm going to give you a broad stroke as to definitely at least part of the story. And part of the story goes back to 2010, right? So Obama wins in 2000, so I guess it goes back to 2008. Obama wins in 2008, and the Republicans are en fuego. They don't like it. You're thinking now how they called him a communist, and you're just like, bro. He's not. Anyway, so the Republicans have this plan, and they know that there's a census coming up in, I think it was 2010. Maybe it was 2011. No, 2010. And their plan is called Red Map. Again, if you don't like my explanation or would like to dive deeper into it, Google it. There's a ton about it. It's not a secret. It's not like hidden. But essentially, Red Map is to turn as many, so between 2008 and 2010, so in 2010, elect as many Republican state legislators as possible. And they pour money into this, right? And they pour money into this, and they're wildly successful. And they do, and they pack the state houses with Republicans. And why this was so important is because of the census. And the census was coming out in 2010. And they realized that if they pack the state houses with Republicans, that after the census comes out, the Republicans get to draw the district lines and can essentially put a lockdown on state and congressional races for at least the next 10 years. And that is exactly what they did. And it was brilliant. And it worked really well. I mean, it worked. It's not just worked well. It did it. They did it. And the Democrats were too busy congratulating themselves and trying to pass Obamacare, which I'll save that for another video too. But anyway, the Republicans did this red mapping, and they essentially locked in Republican majorities and supermajorities all across the country. And the Democrats didn't quite clue in until 2012, 2014, 2016 even, but not really, right? Because they're still riding their Obama wave, and they're still talking about how amazing and incredible they are and progressive, even though they're not progressive. But this is the world that, they were, the insular bubble that they were living in. So then 2016 happens, right? And the Democrats go, whoops, guess we messed up. And they start putting money into the states as well, right? And they start funding, again, states projects, Future Forward, Majority Forward, whatever. All these PACs and NGOs and nonprofits and whatnot start popping up to take back the states. And they get a ton of funding, by one report, again, AI report. The Democrats spent $175 million on state legislative races in 2024. But the problem is that the Republicans had already redistricted everything. And so while they obviously did make some gains, apparently Wisconsin did great, they didn't have the same impact. Nothing has had the same impact as Red Map. And so the Democrats are still playing catch up, which is kind of what they do, right? I mean, this is like encapsulates the Democratic electoral policy. Strategy, I should say, the electoral strategy, is that they're always one election cycle behind. Except for in 2008, where they were ahead and they were like, yes, we built this like amazing machine, right? This amazing, incredible canvassing machine, and we used data, and we had this awesome new database, and we labeled everyone with numbers, and we called them, and we had all these volunteers, and it was like this brilliant, beautiful plan. But then the world changed, and the world changed really fast. Between 2008 and 2016, it was a different world. And so the Clinton campaign was still using the 2008 Obama campaign playbook. But along comes Trump with his, Facebook digital micro-targeting and blows them out of the water. And then we have 2020, which was COVID. It was a weird year, right? Everybody admits it. Everybody knows it. All these weird things happened, and you can't really put a trend line on 2020 because it was such a strange year. But, Biden does win. Barely, though. Barely does Biden win, which in and of itself should be an acknowledgement of how they were doing things wrong, because the Democratic candidate in 2020 should have blown Trump out of the water, right? We had a pandemic, we had crazy inflation, we had cost of living crisis. All of this was coming, and Trump was a maniac. He's a maniac, right? But it didn't matter because, again, like as how political trends go, is like you vote against the person in power if you're unhappy. And most people are unhappy, right? Most people didn't like what was happening in the country. And so they voted against him, and still not a great. But the Democrats took it as a win and how great. And so yet again, they didn't do anything. And so 2024 came around, and they once again used their playbook for 2020, which, well, we all know how that ended up. Point being, they've always been a cycle behind. And the state legislators are an example, right? So here we are. I don't know what the Republican strategy is for the states. I really don't. I don't know. I don't think the Republicans know what their strategy is, quite frankly. It's such a crazy mess that my guess is that they're just riding on what they're doing and patting themselves on the back. And this Democrats do acknowledge that they need a more local effort. They like to call it grassroots. They like to call it, whatever, canvassing, get out the vote, whatever it is. So they acknowledge that. The issue is that there's the disconnect, right, is in reaching these voters. Once again, the Democrats are still using a 2008, a 2012, a 2016 playbook. And we're not there anymore. They are still spending billions of dollars on advertising, on digital, on TV ads, digital ads, micro targeting, all of these things that had their moment, and they really did have their moment. But that moment is very, very quickly slipping away. And the reason for this is the technology is changing, right? We live in a world of AI now. We don't live in a world of Facebook. We live in a world of short video content and streaming platforms and so much is but beyond that, right? Beyond just our technical digital landscape. Our actual landscape and lives are changing. People are operating in a very, very different way than they were in 2008. And if you're not sure what I mean, I think you can start to see it. I think you'll start to see it around if you look. It's not just about being part of your neighborhood and your community and your country. It's about taking care of each other, right? It's the care network. And that's been lost. And the politics that has come to dominate, as we know, is the fear-based, divisive politics. And that's what people are sick of. And that's what people can feel is not how they want to live and operate in this world. And the extraordinary wealth inequality and the burning planet and the lack of civil liberties and the lack of healthcare and food and housing are symptoms of that politics. And so we want something else. We want a politics based off of care, love, community, where we take care of each other. And I think the easiest place to start is the state houses. It's me bringing it back. So that's it. That's why the states. Let me know if you have questions. More to come.